Bloodstain sits and waits. He brought a Scourge with him for backup, but it most likely won't be necessary. He peers into the scope of the rifle he has readied on the back of U.S. Agent. Heh. All it would take is one squeeze of the trigger, and Brother Dearest would spend the remainder of his life wondering how he was going to get by without his head. Jack Daniels believed the story I told him about the Scourge of the Underworld program and decides to join up. Johnny Boy would make a very good Scourge, don't you think? I'll bet you my next bonus that this is where he's got our failed Scourge stashed. Now shut up. I want to hear what he has to say, courtesy of that bug I planted on him. John enters Reverend Nordstrom's home, and immediately the churchman speaks his piece. They have had a man captive for days. He hasn't even been fed. At this point, the Reverend feels like he's engaged in torture, not confinement. John hears what the Reverend is saying and asks him to procure a sandwich for their captive Scourge agent. However, the Reverend can tell that there is something heavy on John's mind. He offers his ear, but John refuses. All this trouble with his so-called brother. He doesn't even know where to start. John carries the food they prepared down to the prisoner and runs into Priscilla. She tells him that she only left her post twice in order to go to the bathroom. She honestly hasn't heard a peep from their captive since a little after John left. John opens up the basement door, and at first, the prisoner is nowhere to be found. John takes a single step into the room to examine further, but then the prisoner jumps out from behind the open door, freed from the ropes that bind him. The prisoner now holds the rope in his own hands, attempting to use it to strangle the life out of U.S. Agent, causing him to drop the food. However, John is able to counter the attack and regain control of the situation. U.S. Agent ties the prisoner up again before holding the man up so he can look into the man's eyes when he says this. Get this straight. You're going to talk to me. And if I like what you have to say, I may dust off your bologna sandwich and let you have it. Am I clear? U.S. Agent interrogates the prisoner. His goal, to find out the truth about everything. The government sanctions, the training program, Bloodstain's true identity. Everything. Unfortunately, the man doesn't know anything. The problem is, U.S. Agent can't tell if it's because this Scourge wasn't told this information, or if it's just everything he was told was an outright lie. With his interrogation seemingly going nowhere, U.S. Agent decides to finally take his prisoner to the proper authorities. Priscilla and U.S. Agent blindfold the man and take him back out to Priscilla's car. They throw the prisoner in the back seat of the car, and U.S. Agent sits back there with him, leaving Priscilla to drive. But when she turns the key to start the ignition, the engine won't turn over. It won't start. It was working fine just 5 minutes ago. Don't blame me. She tries a couple of times to no avail. It is at this moment Priscilla looks up out of the window to make sure the coast is clear, and she is greeted by a man in white and a barrel of a gun. A Scourge, dressed in all white, peers into the car window. "Turn your prisoner over to me, and no one will be hurt." The two heroes stare in disbelief. "Open the door, have him get out, or else I open fire on the whole car." The prisoner pleads for U.S. agent to let him stay in the car. He knows if the agent hands him over, he's a dead man. But U.S. agent doesn't have any choice. He kicks the man out of the car and closes it behind him. "Good choice," commends the Scourge. The Scourge walks the prisoner over to the grass in the Reverend's front yard and has him drop to his knees. The Scourge points his gun at the back of the prisoner's head and the prisoner begs for his life. Suddenly, the sound of ripping metal scratches the air. The Scourge looks back to the car and sees the agent using his shield to tear through the roof of the vehicle, and then launches his shield at the Scourge, successfully knocking him off his feet and saves the prisoner. U.S. agent then leaps out of the car and charges the killer. Was this all just a setup? Did they plant a bug on him without him knowing? Is this Scourge really his brother? U.S. agent's mind is clouded. "I need answers, Scourge. Or is it Bloodstain?" U.S. agent disarms the Scourge and the two of them begin to fight hand to hand. "Well, speak! Answer me! Or do you want me to have to beat it out of you?" Priscilla, seeing the Scourge is distracted, runs to grab the prisoner and tries to take him back inside the house. To Priscilla's surprise, a second Scourge arrives. This Scourge points their pistol at Priscilla and yells out to get the agent's attention. "Stop where you are, or the girl gets greased," she orders. The agent looks back at the Scourge, asking, "What are you threatening her for, Scourge? I thought you had a policy that no innocents were to be harmed." The Scourge looks back and counters, "Priscilla's no innocent." So, Priscilla fights back. She lands a high kick and follows it by kneeing the killer in the abdomen. U.S. agent watches and is almost impressed. The Scourge he is fighting takes advantage of John dropping his guard and throws tear gas to blind the agent. The Scourge U.S. agent is fighting, then sprints over to the prisoner Scourge and executes him, shooting the man point blank in the back of the skull. The Scourge then sets his sights on Priscilla, who is more than handling her own opponent at the moment. The Scourge shoots, but his aim is off and he hits the other Scourge instead. Priscilla lifts the Scourge over her shoulder to protect her from any more bullets and laughs at her luck before searching the now downed opponent for any hidden weapons. She finds a pistol strapped to the Scourge's ankle and lets it rip. One of the bullets actually hits the last Scourge in the stomach. He stumbles, trying his hardest not to collapse to the ground. Instead, he runs off into the tree line and disappears in the distance. John, still blinded from the tear gas, calls out, "What's happening? Who's shooting? Blasted! Priscilla!" "I'm okay. Our prisoner was shot in the head. One of the Scourges took one in the shoulder. The other got it in the abdomen, but managed to run off. Look, this one's still breathing." Priscilla removes the Scourge's mask. "It's Caprice." Priscilla calls an ambulance for Caprice, and John asks the Reverend to bring out a blanket to cover the dead Scourge's body. Later, As the group waits for the ambulance to arrive, John decides to play a hunch. He calls the number on the back of the card Mikey gave him and waits for his supposed brother to pick up the call. When he finally does, Mikey sounds out of breath. "Johnny, what's up? I made up my mind. I want to join you." "You're sure?" "Yeah. So what do you want me to do? Come back to that warehouse where we met?" "Yeah. Meet you in 3 hours. I've got something to take care of first." John hangs up the call and stares at the phone. "Who'd you call?" Priscilla asks. "I'm not sure." John walks over to Caprice. She's awake at the moment, but she isn't in a good condition. It doesn't matter. John interrogates her anyway, attempting to find out who is in charge of the Scourge program. Once again, that question leads nowhere. However, Caprice does know how to find Domino. Finally, with a stable lead, John makes his leave, leaving the Reverend and Priscilla to wait for the ambulance. 2 hours later, in a battle van parked on the outskirts of Los Angeles, Domino sits and waits. The situation certainly isn't good. Operations have come to a complete standstill. Caprice is wounded, maybe dead. No active Scourges in the field. Bloodstain is on some wild goose chase. Their benefactor is not going to be pleased. Then, out of nowhere, U.S. agent kicks down the door. "No, you can't be here," gasps Domino. "Can't? But I am. I understand you're the data freak that gives all the Scourges the skinny on their victims. Is this some of your data? CD-ROMs. How very up to date." "What do you..." "I'm here to put you on a diet, Domino. I understand CD-ROMs have lots of fiber. I just thought you might like to know that as I feed you every single disk in this whole stale-smelling data bank on wheels." No, don't! This is my data! This is my life!" They mean more to you than, say, the identity of your employer? The next morning, at dawn, Domino's van rolls up to the gated estate. The front security checks them in, albeit with a little speculation at first. The two leave the van and then make their way down the paved driveway, through the garden, up to the front door of the admittedly large mansion. To U.S. Agent's surprise, he and Domino are greeted by a nearly 80-year-old man in a wheelchair, being escorted by his heavy-set nurse. "Dominic," he says, "why have you brought this man here? Is this project in jeopardy?" John steps forward. "The fat man claims you financed a succession of serial killers. Sir, is that the project you're talking about?" The old man squints. "So, you are the U.S. agent. Good name. Wish I'd thought of it. Called myself the Angel back in the 40s. Want to hear about it? I was born into money and boredom. I took up crime fighting because it seemed like an interesting thing to do, just for thrills. Back in my day, you didn't need fancy powers to be a hero, just a fancy tailor. I did some good. Maybe not as much as Captain America or the Human Torch, but good nonetheless. I felt pretty darn good about it too. Then, one day, an innocent bystander took a bullet meant for me and died. Oh, I caught the guy, beat him badly, but what was the use? Because I hadn't taken my job seriously enough. An innocent life had been snuffed in its prime. I couldn't put on the suit anymore. I couldn't become the avenging angel again. I retreated into my wealth and my guilt. I wished to atone for my failings, for my lackadaisical way I approached crime fighting. And for years, I obsessed over how I could do so. Finally, I met Dominic, a man who shared my ideas about law and order, and we mapped out a strategy to eradicate the criminal element as efficiently and thoroughly as possible. And thus, the Scourge program was born, the nation's most concerted effort to eliminate the filth that undermines America's moral character. I have rid America of scores of unrepentant menaces. I've improved the quality of life in this nation. I have atoned for my failings of half a century ago. I have truly become the avenging angel. U.S. Agent raises an eyebrow at the old man before turning on his heel, warning everyone that he will be back with the authorities. Before John can take his second step, the heavy-set nurse pulls out a submachine gun from her leg strap and rips off their mask, revealing they are none other than Bloodstain. "Hold it right there, you self-righteous punk," Bloodstain says as he shoots U.S. Agent in the shoulder. "When you stood me up for a little meeting, I figured you might have weaseled your way towards the truth." "Bloodstain? That's right, Johnny, your big bad brother. Cut the crud. You're not my brother. That was a crock, just like the government sanction was. What's it matter, Johnny? You had your chance to be one of society's cleansers, and you blew it. So now, as ever, justice must be served." Bloodstain stands over U.S. Agent and prepares to pull the trigger. U.S. Agent strikes Bloodstain in the stomach with his shield. Bloodstain reels back in pain as he begins to bleed from his bullet wound. U.S. Agent then jumps in for the attack. He uses his shield to block another round of incoming bullets and tackles Bloodstain to the ground. Bloodstain counters by kicking the agent off him and follows up with a double-fisted hammer attack. U.S. Agent takes the hit, but counters with his own uppercut to the gut. The agent is exhausted, and the blood loss has caused him to become lightheaded. U.S. Agent attempts to stumble away into the statue-filled garden, but Bloodstain crawls to his weapon and once again opens fire. John sprints behind the garden statues with his shield up for protection. The bullets chip away at the base of one of the statues across the garden, causing it to become unstable and topple over, creating a domino effect. Domino, the data freak, tries to push the old man in his wheelchair to safety, but he is too slow and caught under one of the falling statues. U.S. Agent, on the other hand, is spared when two of the statues collide into each other. Both of them now stop before they can fall on John. After the barrage of bullets comes to a halt, U.S. Agent realizes Bloodstain is reloading his weapon. He leaps in to attack. Bloodstain sees this and quickens his pace. In a desperate attempt to stop the agent from closing in, Bloodstain jumps out of his cover and fires his weapon. U.S. Agent raises his shield, and each one of the bullets bounce off and return in Bloodstain's direction. The spray of bullets tear apart Bloodstain's clothes and skin. A few of them lodge into his head and upper body, leaving him bleeding out and lifeless on the ground. John leaves the estate with the old man still there, alive. Without anyone to aid him, the old man can't make it back to his chair. He has no choice but to sit there and wait for the authorities to arrive. A few hours later, John is in the hospital getting his wounds attended to. He doesn't know why he was spared today, why those statues didn't fall on him. Maybe there is a reason. Maybe what John has to do now is find out what that reason is. He understands what motivated that old man, the avenging angel. John's done things he feels he needs to make amends for. He just hopes, unlike him, John can see the path to true salvation.